Subscribe for more. After a lengthy wait, the day of the wedding had finally come. The voyage was lengthy and full of hope, sacrifice, and things that weren't said. Amelia made a few little alterations to the neatly ironed wine-colored dress while she was staring at herself in the mirror. Her hands shook a little more than they usually do. There was still a faint sense of rose perfume on her wrists. It mixed with the smell of coffee that was cooling on the table next to her bed. She hadn't eaten much since she was apprehensive, and her stomach was in knots, but she knew that today was essential. She promised herself that today would be different from all the other days. She was ready to leave. She thought that was the case, at least. Amelia has always done her best to be a good mom to her daughter Grace. Grace's parents gave up everything, stayed up all night, and missed chances so that she would one day comprehend how much love and care went into raising her. But the years that had gone by had only made the distance between them wider. Amelia carefully put on the pearl earrings her mom had given her. They reminded her of all the times she had cared for Grace when she was a child. Amelia thought about the fevers, the songs that helped her feel better, and all the times she worked extra shifts to make sure Grace had all she needed. What she had given up now seemed like faint echoes from the past that were getting weaker. Grace and Amelia had both moved on from the past in some manner. Amelia still believed that things will get better one day, though. Amelia woke up from her dream when the phone rang. It was her younger sister Victoria. Victoria's voice was gentle and warm, just like it usually is. "Amelia, how are you feeling?" she said. "Are you ready for the big day?" Amelia said, "I'm more than ready," and her voice shook. "I have a feeling that everything will be different today. I think Grace will see me and value me again." Victoria stood still for a moment, and her quiet showed that she understood. She knew a lot about the person's past. She understood that Amelia and Grace's relationship had gotten worse over the last few years. That's because Grace moved in with Theodore, so the phone calls and visits weren't as frequent or significant. Victoria eventually spoke up after a while. She was kind, but she also chose her words carefully. "Just take care of yourself, sister. Don't expect too much." When Amelia swallowed the lump in her throat, it went away. She had made a choice. Today was the day she would show Grace that she was more than just a mother, she was a lady who had done everything for Grace. They promised to make things right with each other today. Amelia had scheduled for the cab to get to the chapel at 2 p.m. for some reason. And it did. As she was leaving, she felt a surge of nervous energy. A church with delicate pink and white flowers was the realization of Grace's wish. Amelia went there early so that Grace could see her from a good spot. She wanted Grace to know that she hadn't forgotten about her and that she was still a part of her life, even if it had been years since they had seen one other. She came close to the first rows of seats, but the wedding director stopped her for safety reasons. "Sorry, ma'am, but those seats are for immediate family only." "I am the mother of the bride," Amelia answered with a smile and straightened her back. The man frowned as he saw his list. "I'm sorry, but it says here that you should sit in the 5th row." The 5th row from the front, she was treated just like all the other customers. Amelia's chest felt heavy and her heart felt like it had turned to stone because of the stress of the last few years. Why did they put her so far away, like she was just another face in the crowd? She had everything she needed for Grace, and this was where she was supposed to be during her daughter's wedding. She stayed in the location where she had been advised to sit. She kept her eyes on the front even though she could see people filling up the seats. Theodore's friends and co-workers were these people, and they were also new persons in Grace's life after she split up with Amelia. After that, the music started to play. Amelia's heart filled with love as soon as she saw Grace heading down the aisle. Grace looked even more gorgeous and glowed in her white outfit. She also had the same big smile that Amelia had seen her wear many times before. She stared at her daughter, my daughter, who used to be a young kid in her arms and was now a mature woman getting married. Amelia's hope came back to life. This was probably just a mix-up, and that's all it was. Things would definitely be different after the service, right? The service went off without a hitch. Amelia felt better when Theodore stared at Grace, who appeared like a nice person. He looked at her with love and respect in his eyes. At least there was this. There was no doubt that Grace had met someone who loved her the way she should be loved. That was the most crucial thing at this time, right? The wedding took place in a nice hall that was full with candles and fresh flowers, which made the area appear great. Amelia brought the gift she had carefully put together. Over the course of a year, she had paid for the magnificent china set in various installments. A plate was used for each explanation. Every cup gave you a new chance to start anew. She even sold her wedding ring to make sure she could pay for everything. But when she found out whose position she was assigned, her heart broke even more. The table with the number 8 was toward the rear, as far away from the kitchen as it could be. The people who were closest to the bride and groom were Theodore's relatives, friends, and people who were more significant than Amelia. She sat down at a table among people she didn't know, other needy visitors who, like her, had been banished to the periphery. As she sat down next to Amelia, an old woman inquired, "Are you related to the bride's family?" "I'm her mother," Amelia whispered, trying to keep the tears from coming out of her eyes. The woman seemed to be in shock. "But, you're so far back." Amelia could only nod since her throat was tight from her feelings. Amelia couldn't stop looking at Grace when dinner was ready. She was having fun with her pals and her eyes brightened up when she talked to Theodore's mom. It grieved her to watch how Grace got along with other people and how she seemed to have found a new family. Amelia worked on being patient while she waited. She was still excited when Grace walked up to her, inquired how she was, and showed even the smallest bit of interest in her. But Grace was busy with other people and couldn't join in. Amelia thought she wasn't real. She couldn't see her daughter on the hardest day of her life. Amelia's dreams came back as soon as the toast started. Grace might talk about her during her speech now. One day, she could realize who the mother was who gave up everything for her. Amelia, on the other hand, felt that Grace had hurt her when she stood up and talked to her. Grace raised her glass to thank all the wonderful people who were with her that day. To the friends who have become like brothers and sisters, and to the co-workers who have become like family. Amelia held her breath while she waited for something to happen. Grace then remarked, "The people who choose to be with you, support you, and help you grow are your real family. My chosen family is what makes me happy." The words hit Amelia hard. They said no to everything they said. Every time Grace smiled, it looked like she hit someone in the face. Grace and Amelia looked at each other, and Grace knew that she had suffered all the anguish she could endure. After then, Grace was the one who spoke up. "Also, I want to say that some people don't deserve to be in this special moment. They bring negativity and bitterness into our lives." Everyone in the room stopped talking and looked at Amelia. She could feel the shame swelling up inside her like a wave by the heat in her face. Grace didn't only say no to her as a mother. It was what she thought about her. Amelia stood up, but her hands and torso shook all over. Grace didn't wait long before she spoke again, even though she had already taken a step forward. She remarked in a chilly, calm voice, "You can go." Everyone in the room, all 200 of them, watched Amelia walk to the door. Her mind was spinning with ideas as she walked out of the room. She believed this day would be quite different. The day of her daughter's wedding had turned into a night of stress and fear. But at the same time, something else was happening. Theodore stood up. Amelia was in a stupor after Grace told her some things. She felt that the mood changed suddenly when she was standing near the door. Every step she took made her feel like she was carrying a heavy weight. But just as she was about to depart, she heard Theodore's voice clearly. "Grace, I think there are a few things everyone here should know before your mother leaves." Amelia was too terrified to move. There was a lot of stress in the room. People were sitting there silently, not moving or making any noise. Everyone was waiting for something to happen. As Amelia gently turned around, her heart raced. She prayed that this would be the moment that changed everything and held out hope for a miracle. Just a moment earlier, Grace had been standing there with eyes that were proud and mean. Now, it was evident that she was upset. She implored, "Theodore, please don't do this," but it was hard to hear her and her lips were shaking. Theodore didn't stop, even though it was true. His face used to be largely happy. Now, his face was serious and determined, as if there were problems that were worse than what was going on at the wedding. He stood up from his chair and walked to the mic. It was almost alarming how calm he seemed. People moved out of the way as he strolled through the gathering. Amelia felt like everyone in the room was staring at her. Everyone present was on edge since they were all excited about what was going to happen. Grace tried to pull him away again and asked him, "What are you doing?" But he walked to the middle of the room when she took his hand off of hers. Everyone in the room could hear him talk to Grace straight over the microphone, and his hands were steady. People down the hall could hear his voice since it was so loud. Amelia could feel her tummy going tight because of the noise. Theodore replied, "You never stopped talking about how bad your mother was when we started dating 3 years ago." What else did Theodore know that made it possible for him to say these things? He wasn't from their world or their past. Theodore kept talking, but Grace's eyes went huge and her face showed that she was afraid. "You said she was a bitter, controlling woman who always found fault with what you did. You said she was a burden and a bad person you were better off without." Every word that was spoken pierced Amelia's heart like an arrow, plunging deeper and deeper. Everyone could now hear all the bad things others said about her, like how much she loved and gave up for others. She never thought that Grace would be able to talk about her like this, especially with the guy she had chosen to spend the rest of her life with. Theodore's voice rose stronger as he asked Grace, "Was this how you talked about your mother to me? Is this how you talked about the woman who gave up everything to raise you?" "Please don't do this, Theodore," Grace implored as she got closer to him. She cried with a quiet voice. But he still had work to do. "I'm afraid not," he responded firmly. "You can't hide from this. I trusted you, Grace. I believed what you said about her because I thought I knew the woman I was going to marry. But a month ago, I decided to look into it myself." There was no sound at all in the room. Amelia's feet felt like they could fall through the ground at any moment. Because her muscles were stiff, she held on to the back of the chair to hold herself steady. What may Theodore have discovered? What did he find? He glanced right into her eyes when he turned around. He spoke through the thick air, "I went to Victoria. I wanted to know the whole story, the story that Grace had never told me. Mrs. Amelia, the truth is something that no one here has heard before." The only noise in the room was Amelia's heart racing swiftly in her chest. She wasn't ready for how strong the words Theodore said to her that day would be. "Grace's mother isn't the bitter, toxic woman you made her out to be. She was a widow when Grace was only 12 years old. To support her daughter, she worked 18 hours a day and sold her house, jewelry, and furniture to make sure Grace had everything she needed. She worked as a maid, a waitress, and anything else she could do to give her daughter a better life." Amelia's legs felt wobbly when Theodore spoke. Someone saw her for the first time in years. Someone knew how many sacrifices she had made, how much suffering she had been through, and how many years of hard labor had gone unappreciated. Theodore halted for a second, but he didn't take his eyes off of Grace. When Grace graduated from college, she didn't thank her mother for everything she had done. Instead, she moved to a different city, leaving Amelia alone after everything she had done. And do you know how many times Grace has called or visited her mother since then to ask how she was? Theodore's voice got louder, and everyone could see how angry he was. 3 times, he muttered again and over, his voice quivering with horror. That's 3 times in 3 years. And every time Amelia tried to reach out, Grace turned her down. She didn't answer her calls or messages. Amelia gasped because she couldn't breathe. In 3 different ways. At that moment, all the feelings she had been attempting to hide came rushing back, the sorrow of the calls that had gone unanswered and the lonely evenings she spent wondering why her daughter couldn't see how much she loved her. Theodore continued, his voice still sad but powerful. And then things got even worse. Amelia even sent Grace money, which she needed badly to stay alive. And Amelia was always there for Grace when she needed her, but Grace never came back. Amelia could hardly see the floor when she glanced down because she had been crying for so long. The things Theodore spoke were like an old wound that needed to be healed, but they also felt like a new sore that needed to be healed. She stood in the middle of the room, her face as pallid as a ghost. She didn't say anything and her mouth was shut. The words were so heavy that she couldn't think of anything to say in response to what Theodore said. She didn't imagine this would happen. He would never do anything like this. Not from the man she had just married. Theodore appeared more thoughtful as he shifted his focus back to Amelia. His voice was going softer, but it still sounded sure. "I don't know how you did it, Mrs. Amelia. I don't know how you kept going, giving up so much and asking for so little. But I want you to know this, I was wrong. I believed Grace's version of things, but now I see the truth. And the truth is, you're not the woman Grace described. You're the woman who gave everything for her, who fought through every hardship for her happiness. And I want to apologize, not just for what I believed, but for not seeing you for who you really are." She started to breathe more slowly, and she thought she was going to cry because she was so full of emotions. Someone finally saw her for who she really was after years of not seeing it. A mother who never gave up and always battled for her family, even when it appeared like no one else did. That being considered, what Theodore said next greatly surprised her. He looked straight into Grace's eyes and made up his mind, knowing he couldn't change it. "He told me, I can't marry someone who would treat their own mother like this. I can't start a life with someone who doesn't care about the family that loves them." The room got quite quiet. The enthusiasm was so high that it was hard to handle. Amelia could hear her own heart beating steadily, which made it feel like time had frozen. It was the beat of relief, support, and hope. Grace yelled, but it wasn't an angry or defiant yell. She begged with all her heart for aid. "No, Theodore. Please. Don't do this. We can fix it." But Theodore had already decided what he would do. He took off his wedding ring and put it on the table in front of him. Amelia didn't move as he walked away. Her hands were shaking. She never imagined it would happen, but it did. She had to leave the love of her life since Grace had turned her back on her. At that point, it was evident that much. But Theodore wasn't going to sit back and watch Grace treat her mom that brutally. While Theodore turned his back on Amelia and Grace and left the room without uttering a word, she stayed totally still. There was no noise in the whole hall. The only sound in the room was Amelia's heart thumping. For a brief moment, it felt like time had stopped. The air was thick with doubt and fear, making it hard to breathe. She was caught in the rear of the hall and couldn't get out. Even though Grace's pleas were hard to hear and seemed to originate from far away, she could understand them. For example, if the words didn't mean anything to her anymore. "Please, please don't leave me," Grace cried, her voice cracking. "Please, Theodore, don't leave me like this." Her voice broke, and everyone in the room could hear how sad she was. Theodore didn't stop on his travels, though. He didn't look back. Amelia wasn't sure if she could stand up for a second since her legs felt like they were made of lead. The shame, rejection, and heaviness of all that had happened hit her all at once. The mom had put her own needs and wants aside for years to put her daughter's needs first. Now, she was informed she didn't deserve to be a part of her daughter's most significant day. Amelia went to the door after Theodore left the room. As if it were second nature, she walked rapidly and slowly. She was having a hard time maintaining calm since her heart was racing in her throat. She didn't care if anyone saw her tears, even though they were coming. She didn't mind whether people talked about her behind her back or judged her. She was treated badly, but at least she was honest. Everyone in the hall stopped what they were doing and watched Amelia as she went out. As she stood at the door, she saw several people she knew, some of Grace's distant cousins and some of Theodore's pals. But none of them stopped her. No one tried to get in touch with her and make her feel better. Everyone witnessed how rude her daughter had been in public, and they all knew who was to blame. Amelia moved out of the hall and into the crisp evening air. The soothing wind that blew by her face made her feel like she could breathe again for a little while. It didn't give you any freedom. There was no peace and quiet. But it was a break from the tremendous burden of not being a part of her daughter's life. She sat down on a garden seat. Her body started to shake as she struggled to calm down. She rubbed her eyes with the back of her fingers as she thought about how heavy it had been for years to be emotionally ignored. She was sad, but there was something else going on that she couldn't quite put her finger on. It might have been a sense of relief. It might have been years since she had genuinely taken a breath for the first time. This was the first time anyone had ever seen her, after all. Someone else had said what she wanted to say. A lawyer had come to help the mother who had given her daughter everything but hadn't been paid back. While she was pondering about something, her phone in her bag rang. It was Victoria. Amelia thought about it for a second, but then she got over her trepidation and picked up the phone. Victoria's voice was full with fear when she talked on the phone. "Amelia," she said. "Are you all right?" Amelia didn't sure how to respond. What was the point of going into so much detail about what had happened? How could she ever find the right words to say how awful it hurt, ashamed, and turned down? Instead, she decided to say what she had to say. "I don't know, Vic. I just don't know." After a little pause, Vicky let out a sigh. "I knew it was coming. I've seen how Grace has treated you over the years, and I knew this wouldn't end well." Amelia's voice shook as she added, "I just thought that today would be different. I thought Grace would notice me and be grateful for everything I've done for her." Victoria's voice broke the silence after a short interval. "Amelia, she's been selfish. You've been a saint, and she's treated you this way. Don't let this define you. It's time to stop chasing after her love. You've done enough. You've given enough." Amelia shut her eyes and leaned back against the bench. What her sister had said was weighing on her mind. For the first time in a long time, she let herself believe that those words were true. Now, other things besides Grace were vital. It has to deal with Amelia in some way. She had done everything she could to aid her daughter, but now she needed to start living a life that made her happy. Amelia responded, "Maybe you are right." Her voice was so low that it sounded like a whisper. "Maybe it's time to let go." Amelia felt like she could breathe for the first time in a long time because of the words that were lingering in the air between them. She still felt like she was suffocating when Grace turned her down, but there was also a small hint of something new, something she hadn't felt before. Vicky let out a gentle sigh. "Don't worry, I'm coming over. You don't have to go through this by yourself." Amelia nodded to signify that she agreed, even though Victoria couldn't see her. "Okay, Vic. I'll wait for you." There wasn't much noise on the way to Victoria's residence. Amelia was in the passenger seat and had a lot on her mind. She was hurt and fatigued, yet she could feel a quiet force growing inside her. She couldn't stop thinking about all Theodore had said about how dedicated, loving, and strong she was. That was the first time someone recognized her as the woman she really was, not as the mother she had wanted to be but never could be. When they got to Victoria's house, it was quiet, and the smell of chamomile tea was in the air. Amelia felt more secure when she sat down in a chair at the kitchen table. The tea was warm. She took her time drinking the tea, thinking it might help with the scorching agony in her chest. When she sat down with her at the table, she was quiet and deep in contemplation. "You know," she remarked with quiet trust, "what Theodore did today, that was something. It was about time someone stood up for you. But don't think it's over. This is just the beginning for you." Amelia was angry and heartbroken when she glanced at her sister. "It doesn't feel like a start, Vic. It feels like an end." Vicky shook her head back and forth. "It's not the end, Amelia. It's just the end of a chapter. There's so much more life to live and so much more waiting for you. You've always put Grace first, but now it's your turn. It's time for you to live for yourself." Amelia's lips curved up into a smile for the first time in years. It didn't seem like it was precisely balanced. That smile didn't mean happiness. But it was the smile that proved that they understood and had hope. The phone rang again after that. This time, she didn't know what the number stood for. Amelia took a time to calm down before she began. Her hand was shaking a little. Hey? I didn't know who was on the other end of the line, but they sounded calm. Mrs. Amelia? This is Theodore. Her heart rate sped up because of what was going on. Victoria, who was watching her closely, caught her eye for a second. She questioned Amelia, "Is everything okay?" in a quiet voice. "I wanted to call you myself," Theodore began first, his voice strong but also nice. "I owe you an apology. I should have known who you were a long time ago, but I didn't. I'm sorry for that. What you did today, what you stood for, was something I'll never forget. I want to help you, Mrs. Amelia. I want to give you something." Amelia's heart raced, and she sat up taller. "What do you mean?" After a short gap, Theodore started talking again, but this time he was more focused. "I'm starting a project that I think can really help. It's a community center for women like you who have given everything for their families and been ignored. Women who need a place to rebuild and find their strength again. I want you to be a part of it." Amelia gasped because she couldn't breathe. It seemed like the globe was coming together for the first time. She was not just a mother who had been turned down, but she was also a woman with a goal in life. Theodore asked the other person, "Are you interested?" Amelia closed her eyes for a moment to think about how serious the offer was. They didn't simply offer to work on a project, they also offered to start anew. When she said yes, her voice kept calm and strong. Amelia didn't say anything after she hung up. The things Theodore had spoken were still making her feel things. She hadn't felt this way in years, but she felt like she had a lot of promise. She felt like the life she had always wanted wasn't out of reach and wouldn't be gone forever. He had said that they should work together to build a community center for ladies like her. This wasn't simply a thinking, it was an offer. It was an opportunity to improve, heal, and make up for everything that had gone wrong in the past. Victoria didn't say anything during the phone call. She didn't say anything else as she gazed at the other person across the table. There may have been signs of optimism, worry, and pride on her sister's face. "Did you hear that?" she said, shocked and not believing it. "He wants me to help build something for women like me, women who have been pushed aside and given everything but gotten nothing in return." Victoria smiled softly with her eyes. They were about to cry, but they hadn't yet. "I heard, and I'm proud of you, Amelia. This is the chance you've been waiting for. It's your chance to show the world who you really are, not just as Grace's mother, but as Amelia. As the woman you've always been but couldn't see until now." Amelia shook her head gently, and she could feel her heart start to beat in a different way. Her role as a mother and her relationship with Grace had helped her find out who she was for years. But this was the first time she had ever talked about herself in her own words. She was more than just a mother to her kids. She was a strong lady with her own goals and dreams, and the will to make them happen. "Vic, I'll do it. I will help him. I will make this place. I will make something of myself," Amelia stated with a firmness in her voice that made it clear she meant it. Victoria said, "Amelia, I believe in you," and then she put her hand on top of her sister's and reached over the table to grab her. "You've always had the strength, you just needed to see it for yourself." Amelia put everything she had into the job and worked on it nonstop for a few weeks. They all worked together to make the New Dawn Women's Center more than just a dream. Theodore cared about the cause just as much as she did. The project was based on the basic premise of giving women who had been ignored and forgotten a place to meet, seek support, and start anew. They need a place to learn new things, feel better about themselves, and be told how important they are. The project went quickly. Theodore was an engineer, and Amelia knew what these ladies actually needed. Together, they came up with a plan for the center that was both beautiful and helpful. There would be vast, well-lit spaces in the structure that would be used for workshops. There would be a cafe where women could sell things they made by hand. There would also be a big community room where women might meet for events and support groups. The facility was more than just a building, it served a purpose that went beyond its dimensions. It was a safe place to be. A place where women may regain their strength, respect, and sense of worth. Amelia had a chance to give something back. To help other people in the same manner that she had always wanted someone to help her. The process was very hard. Amelia sometimes didn't think she was good at her job and thought her assignments were too hard for her to handle. When she wanted to quit, she would think about the ladies who might one day walk through those doors. She needed them just as much as they needed her. This would give her the strength to keep going. She kept moving without stopping. Amelia was getting ready for the most significant day of her new life as the center was getting set to open. This day had been 6 months ago. She couldn't believe how far she had gone. She went from being a lady who had been turned down, ignored, and made fun of to someone who was building a legacy for herself and others in just a few months. The day before the big event, Amelia was getting ready in her new flat for the events. She stood in front of the mirror. The woman she saw in the mirror had someone she didn't know. The woman's worn eyes were gone. She had been hiding for years to make her daughter happy, even though she could never completely see her. She was going to meet a woman who had discovered her voice, her courage, and her purpose in life. As she adjusted the emerald green dress Victoria had picked out for her to wear, it made her grin. It looked nice without being too flashy. It was just right. She saw a lady in the mirror who was content with who she had become. It had been a long time since she had seen this. When the center opened for the first time the next day, it was all Amelia had imagined it would be. There were a lot of folks in the room with quite different backgrounds. Some of them had gone through a lot of hard times, while others were just starting to feel better. There were a lot of people from the media, the government, and the community there, and they were all extremely excited to see what the new Dawn Women's Center will do. Amelia felt a number of different things as soon as she went into the facility. That was it. For a while, she had been trying to attain this aim. At this time, everything she had given up and put up with came to a head. After a lengthy wait, she was finally going to make a difference in the world. The party for the opening was absolutely great. The women who traveled to the center talked about their adventures and how they had discovered a place where people could see and hear them. Emily, who was 63 years old at the time, took a job as a pastry chef after being a mother for many years. She talked about what it was like. Linda, who was 58 at the time, said that the support group she had joined had helped her get better after her kids left her in a nursing facility. Hope, who was 72 years old at the time, was quite proud to show off the crafts she had been selling at the cafe in the center. Amelia took a deep breath and walked up to the microphone when it was her turn to speak. Everyone in the room was quiet while they waited for her to speak again. She gazed at the women who had come to the center and asked for her help to make things better. She felt a rush of happiness that made her heart swell. For the first time in a long time, it seemed like everyone was paying attention to her. Amelia added, "I stand here today not as Grace's mother, but as a woman who has found her inner strength. I want to thank all of you women who have been through the unspeakable and come out stronger on the other side. This place is for you. That's where you can find your voice, your purpose, and your sense of value. Somewhere you may start over." Amelia felt tranquil in a manner she had never felt before when everyone in the crowd started to clap. This was the present she left behind. This is the narrative she told. Grace had found something much more significant than anything that occurred to her, a group of women who actually understood her. Amelia recognized someone she knew in the throng as the event was ending. Theodore stood by the door and gazed at her with a proud smile on his face. She went up to him because she felt weighed down by all that had happened and everything that was going to happen. "You did it," he said, and his voice was full of appreciation. "You did something amazing, Amelia. You changed the lives of a lot of women. You should be very proud of yourself." Amelia smiled and added, "Theodore, I couldn't have done this without you. You believed in me when no one else did." He smiled and nodded, which made him feel better. "And you believed in yourself before that. That is the most important thing." Amelia turned her head and noticed a group of women in the middle of the room. It had been a few years since she had felt like she belonged to the group. She had a family, a goal, and a cause to live. A family that chose her. People talking and laughing filled the building as the night wore on. Women often got together to make acquaintances, tell stories, and plan for the future. Amelia knew that this was only the beginning of far worse things to come as she watched from a distance. She found a new way to live her life that didn't depend on other people loving or supporting her. She was going to start a new era in her life at this point. Amelia felt like she fit in, which she hadn't felt in a long time. 2 years had passed since the new Dawn Women's Center opened, and her life had changed radically in that time. She has helped hundreds of women get their lives back on track, reclaim their self-respect, and find the strength to keep going. The news even covered Amelia's tale, and the center was doing great as it stretched out to more regions. Not only was her book, It's Never Too Late to Start Over, a hit, it also became a bestseller. People requested her to speak at conferences, and TV shows talked to her. She had made a plan for her life that didn't include her relationship with Grace anymore. Even though Amelia had found peace inside herself, there was still a small part of her that was interested in her daughter. Grace had not been in her life for a long time. She had learned to deal with it, but it still hurt and left a hollow that she could never replace. More than once, Grace had tried to get in touch with her. She had sent her a lot of text messages saying she was sorry, guilty, and begging her to understand. Amelia had not changed her mind, though. She had not altered her mind. She didn't believe she was ready. Before Grace even thought about opening her heart again, she wanted her to fully grasp how horrible what had happened was and how much devastation she had inflicted. Amelia was in her office looking over the facility's data when her phone rang. She checked the caller ID. She didn't know what the number on the screen signified. She had a hard time answering. "Hello? Here's a quote, Mrs. Amelia, is that you?" The voice on the other end of the line was familiar, but it sounded a little unsure. It was Grace. She felt her heart rush because of what was happening. She didn't know what to say for a while because she hadn't heard Grace talk in a long time. Amelia couldn't even remember what it was like to be her mother because they were so far apart. "Grace?" Amelia was able to speak up in the end, even though she was really upset. The sound of her voice remains the same. "This is what someone said, what is that?" For a long time, Grace didn't say anything. Her voice was softer than it had been during the wedding when she did. "Sorry, Mom. I know it's been a long, but I need to talk to you." Amelia's thoughts was racing, but she kept her feelings in check. "What's going on, Grace?" "Yes, I've been going to therapy and working on myself. I've also learned a lot about how I treated you and what I did to you. But I'm not okay, and things aren't okay. I can't keep acting like I'm okay because I'm not." When Amelia heard Grace's voice, she was so moved that she cried. She didn't want to feel the sorrow of hearing her child plead for forgiveness again. She had come to terms with the fact that it was a part of her life. Amelia, on the other hand, didn't want to keep listening to Grace after a while because of how she talked. "Mother, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I understand it now. I know all the things you did for me and all the things you gave up. I don't know if I can make up for what I did, but I have been working on myself." Amelia took a deep breath and set the phone down on her desk, her hands shaking a little. She stared out the window, and her mind was racing. Could she let Grace back in after everything that had happened and how much it hurt to be rejected? Would she be able to allow herself be vulnerable again after all the grief Grace had brought her? Amelia remarked in a calm but emotional voice, "I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you right now. I am paying attention, though." After a short interval, Grace spoke. "Mother, I'm coming to see you. I'd like to talk to you in person. I know it's a lot to take in, but I've changed. I promise to do it. All I need is an opportunity." Her voice was a mix of optimism and desperation. Amelia felt like she had a lump in her throat, but she didn't say anything. What was the best thing to do in this situation? She couldn't deny that part of her wanted to hold on to the hope that Grace was really changing. But the part of her that had been hurt, lied to, and turned down told her that it's not easy to forgive. The faith had been broken in ways that couldn't be fixed in one night. Amelia responded, "I'll be waiting," in a quiet voice and hung up. As time went on, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting, this moment, had to happen. She was going to see Grace. But what did that mean for any of them? What did it mean? Was it the beginning of something new, or just a painful memory of what had happened? Grace arrived at the New Dawn Women's Center late in the afternoon. The sky was dark with clouds, and the air smelled like rain. Someone knocked on Amelia's door while she was working in her office, waking her up. When she opened the door, Grace was already there. Her beauty had faded with time and experience. She looked different, thinner and less strong than before. She didn't have the cockiness that used to be her trait. The previous woman was replaced by a woman who seemed more real and less cocky. "Mother," Grace replied in a calm but heartfelt voice. "I'm so sorry." Amelia swallowed the lump in her throat and made it go away. Her daughter made her feel different, and she looked at her for a long time, taking it all in. Grace wasn't the adult who turned her down, but she wasn't the child that Amelia had raised either. She felt stuck between wanting to make things right and being sad about what she had done. Amelia quietly nodded her head and told Grace to sit down or get up. It was a gentle way of saying, "You have changed." "I have no other choice," Grace said. "Now I realize how much harm I've done. Mother, this isn't just your tale. It's also mine. I can't avoid the reality any longer." They stayed still and quiet for a while. There was still a weight in the air from the years that had gone between them. Amelia could tell that Grace was being honest in her words as she talked. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she might get better. Grace spoke slowly and softly. She held her hands tightly in her lap and said, "I've been volunteering at a shelter for women who have been through the same thing as you, Mom. I know how hard it is to pick up the pieces and start over after someone leaves you. After they lost everything they owned. For some reason, I now see that you were right. Throughout the whole thing, you were right." Amelia felt a sharp pang in her chest. It was strange to think that the words she had been waiting to hear were finally going to be said. She wasn't sure if she was ready to accept them yet. Amelia remarked in a quiet voice, "Can you understand it now? What you did to me? How bad did it hurt?" Grace's eyes were getting teary as she nodded her head. "I get it. I get it now. I know I can't change what I did. But I want to improve. For me, for you, and for everyone I've wronged." Amelia's heart broke when she stopped. She had been looking forward to this moment for a long time, but now that it was here, she didn't know what to do. Could she really forget and forgive? Could she let go of her old life and welcome the chance for a new beginning? Amelia remarked in a low voice, "That's great to hear that you're trying to get better. But forgiving someone isn't easy. This will take some time." Grace's face showed that she was upset, but she didn't say anything else. She only nodded to show that she understood. Amelia sat down in her chair after taking a step back and letting out a big breath. "Grace, I don't think things will ever go back to how they were. I'm willing to give it a try, though. I'm interested in seeing what we can build from here on out. It won't be easy. It won't happen right away. But I'm willing to give it a try. Whatever it takes, Mother, I promise I will do it," Grace said. I waited. It will be done when it's ready." Amelia felt hopeful for the first time in a long time. It didn't fix everything, but it was a step in the right direction. They weren't locked in the past or in the same location they had been before. Amelia got up and walked up to Grace. She put her arms out and held her daughter carefully. It wasn't ideal, and Grace wasn't completely better yet, but it was something. It was a step forward, and maybe that was all that was needed. They walked away from each other, and Grace looked up at her. "Thanks for giving me a chance, Mom." Amelia smiled and softly turned her lips into a smile. "Grace, this isn't just a chance for you, it's a chance for both of us." This was the beginning of the healing journey for both Grace and Amelia. It was a reminder that even the worst injuries may start to heal, no matter how long it takes, as long as there is a will to change and rebuild. It can take a lot of time, energy, and patience to make the most crucial relationships, but they're worth it in the end because no one should ever feel like they're not there. Amelia gained her inner power by not letting what other people thought of her define who she was. With that strength, she was able to construct something important, a place where women like her could get their self-respect, their worth, and their future back. As we see this drama unfold, we are reminded that it's never too late to start afresh. We can learn about ourselves, move on from our previous hurts, and fix things we fear we've lost forever. Please like this tale and tell us what you think in the comments below if you find something in it that speaks to you, like the guts to get better or the strength to keep going. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to discover more stories of hope and progress. Send this video to someone who needs to remember that now is the greatest moment to start fresh. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Don't forget that your tale is just getting started.